I was sitting at home working from my house, which I do on most Mondays, must have meetings, and was actually enjoying my birthday. And all my fun Facebook greetings, that pop through all the time. When something devastating happened, I honestly don't remember how I received the news. I don't remember if it was something on Facebook or if it was in somebody, I don't know, I don't remember. All I know is that things changed drastically. But as we know, the tornado hit Moore, Oklahoma. And, it was quite disturbing. But at that time, I was quite busy with a number of things. I always have lots of projects going on for Community Hope Center, family, whatever. And even though I stopped to pray and, was wondering, who's going to help? It really didn't cross my mind at first that I was going to go and do anything. My husband walked in from work briefly, and he walked in, and I said, "You're not going to believe what happened." Because it really, truly was deja vu of what had happened in Joplin, Missouri, a couple years ago. I told him what happened, and I looked at him, and I said, "That's just crazy, isn't it?" He said, "Wow, it's awful." And I said, "Well, I just received a text about 5 minutes ago from a friend of ours, and she said to me, 'Well, I guess you're going to go now, aren't you?' And I started to respond and say, 'No, I just don't have time.' And just kind of held that in for a few minutes, and when Rob walked in, and I told him, I said, 'Guess what Sue said?' And I told him what my response was, and he said, 'Oh, busy, guys, got things on your mind, you're thinking work.' He walks out of the room. He immediately turns back around and looks at me and goes, 'We have to do something.' I said, 'I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was feeling, but we needed to be on the same page.' So I immediately contacted our executive director, Lynn Cloninger at Community Hope Center, and I said, 'Can we step up to the plate like we did in Joplin?' He said, 'Absolutely. Go to town.' So, I'm no professional at this, but when it happened in Joplin, Missouri, Ralph and I did the same thing then. We said, we need to do something. So we're like, what do we do? And with the homeless outreach that we do in St. Louis, we said, we'll load up our vehicles with supplies, we'll take cold drinks and food, and we'll just hit the streets and do what we can. And that's what we did in Oklahoma. So I put the word out through Facebook and social media, and it's an amazing tool, because let me tell you, we had an 18-foot box truck full, as well as a big Jeep and an open trailer loaded with supplies. And we requested very specific things. I didn't realize how much I had learned from the experience in Joplin. Again, no professional, just someone who had a heart to help and taking what I learned on helping those on the streets. But when I started organizing it, I was impressed. You just learn how easy it just kind of flowed. Like, wow, God is good. He's opening these doors. He's giving me this knowledge. So I contacted emergency management in Oklahoma and Moore and the different surrounding cities, and we got a plan in place. And we asked very specific items, because the needs are very specific at those times. They don't need furniture. They don't need. The first thing that arises is clothing. You don't need clothing, and most times the first thing we're seeing as well is water. So we took some Gatorade, some other things, but we had these vehicles loaded with things, so the community really was amazing. And we had a team of about 11 people that started out with this. We didn't all go together, it worked out well. Some people went on down without us, and we hit the road with several with us. And by the time, that was Monday, we left Friday afternoon. By the time we got there, and it was the middle of the night, we got up early the next day, and by that time, they were actually allowing people to come into the city of Moore. And so it was perfect timing, really. So we had touched base with a few churches. Our base camp was in Oklahoma City, Southern Hills, Oklahoma, Church of God in Oklahoma City. So we dropped off some of the things there. At that time, again, they were just letting everybody in, so we had made contact with another church, River of Life, in Moore. And that church was 2 blocks from where the devastation hit. Their roof had shingles blown off, but instantly we made connections with people. And there was a lady that was a member of the church, and she said, I live 2 blocks down, and the main road that the church was on was Santa Fe, and you probably heard it in the news. It was Santa Fe. She was 2 blocks down from the church, so it was 12th and Santa Fe. And so she said, I live right on the corner. My house is a disaster, but you can use my driveway. Whatever you want to do, it's yours. So we had pulled down our enclosed trailer with supplies we used for those that are homeless, and we have a sound system. So we set up our sound system, we started playing Christian music, we set up our tables and supplies, and we just loaded up our vehicles, And that was kind of the central point we worked out of. And so we hit the streets, we took pen and paper, and we just started going house to house and asking what the needs were. And they really were a variety of needs. People were just able to get onto the properties. So that moment, you just imagine, you're still in shock. You're seeing your property, everything you've worked for, and your home, your cars, your boats, your motorcycles gone. Just devastating. So they're just trying to cope. And they're trying to find grandma's necklace that they gave her. And they're trying to find those precious items. And let me tell you, there was not very much to be found, to be recovered. Is that shown over there? Oh, okay. And we've got pictures over here. I thought we'd be able to show them all, but it's okay.
Well, I want to grab the lights.
But we took cold water and Gatorade, and we took a number of things. This was a couple that we met on Saturday was our first day. This was actually Sunday. And the city more you weren't actually able to get into because President Obama was on his way. However, I'm determined. And we got back in, and some of the residents were still there. This was Mr. Rotary. He and his wife really lost everything. They made it to their storm shelter about 20 seconds to spare before the tornado hit, and their house was wiped out. The amazing thing is, tornadoes are so bizarre. Their street, their whole section was wiped out. Across the street was barely touched, and that was the block from the church to that 12th Street. Is it not scrolling? Let it go. President Obama, we actually got to see Air Force One. So we knew something was going on. We figured out we heard President Obama was coming, so it was kind of exciting to actually see that. We saw, we got tired of waiting. We actually started to leave, and as we're driving, one of the military policemen said, "Hey, there's Air Force One," and we jumped out of the vehicle, took some pictures. But the roadies, I wish we had those pictures. It's okay, we'll get back to it. But as you can see, the remains of these houses were, nothing left. And so we were the first ones to talk to some of these people. They had not had a chance to talk to anyone. We were helping them find those items. We were giving them cold drinks, basic supplies, cold rags because it was hot, letting them cool off and cool down. But more than anything, we just wanted to pray with them, give them some hope, give them some encouragement. As you can imagine what you would feel like in this times of devastation, we just wanted to go and help them. And you all, this community, the Riverbend, was just fantastic. We were able to take so many things that they needed, but we were also able to take hugs and prayer and encouragement and basic necessities. We met at the Santa Fe and 12th Street. At the end of 12th Street, there was a row of houses, and behind that is where the Plaza Towers Elementary was at. So we actually worked that neighborhood quite strong. But we talked with a woman. It was her sister's home, and her sister could not bring herself to go back. She lost her son, and the Plaza Elementary is in the school behind her house. So the woman was frantic. She's like, "I just need to find his Matchbox cars." And they had a daughter as well, but she survived, and they wanted to find her Barbie. So we put our gloves on, we rolled our sleeves up, and we went to work trying to help them find those things. You keep turning that. I thought it was loot. Oh, I think you've got it on the wrong one. That's what I just realized that there's the PowerPoint actually. Those are the pictures.
Yeah.
My fault. Yeah, there's a PowerPoint. Guess I need to be more specific. Can I say
I didn't see a PowerPoint after Oklahoma.
But anyway, so we took, like, this was a bucket. It had Bible and some food and some ready-made meals and toiletries and so forth. But again, these folks were, they were a mess. And so we worked really hard and more the entire day on Saturday. We started getting word using my social media abilities, going on Facebook and Twitter, was able to follow hashtags and find out that there was towns called Shawnee and Little Axe, Pecan Valley, and so forth, and they weren't getting the media attention. And so these are Indian friends, and so they really were just stranded. Unfortunately, in situations like this, you have people that will prey upon individuals. Hard to believe in the middle of that devastation and chaos, there are people that will show up and try to take advantage of them. And so people had showed up and say, "We'll help you," and then they tried charging them. And they were stealing from, "Well, you're not going to pay, I'm going to take these things." It's unbelievable. So when we actually made the connections, a church in McLeod, Oklahoma. They helped us know where to go, and there were signs of the properties. If you step foot, we will shoot, and they had guns. So it was quite alarming for a moment. You know, we just, you know, stepped to the property kindly and shared and said, would you like something cold to drink? Would you like some food? You know, can we give you this or whatever? What do you need? And so when we gained their trust and they realized we're not here to charge you anything, we're here to help, we went to work and helped them. And some of the scattered areas, those smaller rural areas, they didn't have quite the complete devastation. It was still definitely chaos, and they lost most everything. A lot of trees, you know, you've got wooded areas. So we really we worked hard. We drew out a lot of trees and cut up a lot of trees, and there was, I remember, this is the funny thing, we showed up in this little town, and this guy says, well, we're gonna meet Preacher Man soon. I said, okay, well, we've got this gas station, and we're waiting, and this man walks up, and I said, you must be the preacher man. He says, I am, and I looked down, he had a name tag, and it said, James Bond. I said, wait a minute, are you telling me we're being led by Pastor James Bond? He shook his head, yes, and grinned. You could tell he heard it a time or two. So here's the actual PowerPoint. This was some of our team as we arrived. That was our trailer supplies, but like I said, we had the 18-foot box truck, we had a trailer. So the Southern Hills Church of God, I can tell you that these little churches, when something happens like this, the people go, they turn to the churches and the organizations. The Red Cross was on the scene and so forth, but the churches get hit hard. Their whole world is completely turned upside down. You can only imagine if Community Hope Center, we had something here, I mean, people would turn to us as well as the churches. So you're talking part-time pastors that have a full-time job somewhere else as well. Secretaries, they just, it was crazy. So this is some of the supplies that we brought. So their gyms were just overloaded. We were there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We actually worked Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. We stayed there for half a day. That was Memorial Day. So we had to go back and so did everybody else. So most people were there for that weekend to work. But when we left, this was a lady's house where we set up camp. Her house was still standing, but the inside was a mess. But anyway, so their world was upside down. They're still in chaos. They're still trying to get back to normalcy. But there are many people like in the Pecan Valley, Shawnee, Little Axe areas, they're living still on their grounds in tents. They have no running water, they have no electricity. They're still trying to survive. They're still trying to protect their properties. So this is what you're looking at. Those folks, the residents, they were given 1 week to haul everything, clean it up, haul it to the curb, and have it hauled off. So that's been gone some time, but it's still a mess there. There are some areas that are cleaned up, and there are some that are still a mess. So these are very common pictures of what we saw when we arrived on the scene. And when that tornado hit Inmore, it was at the time when the children were getting out of school. So the end of that Santa Fe and the end of 12th Street, I told you there's the street, and then behind that was the elementary. Well, the way they had it set up there was to help traffic flow. Parents would park on the end of that, on that 12th Street. So parents were in their cars when the sirens were going off. We talked, this was the house where the lady, they lost their son. And behind that, you can see the school building. That was Plaza Towers. But the one gentleman we talked to, Andy, he lived to the left of that. He shared with us that, you know, just like when we have a tornado siren go off, you get into a safe place. This was kind of humorous. I have to find humor in the midst of tragedy. But he said he heard the siren go off, and he got into his bathtub. And he said, after a few minutes, he said, I heard something I never heard before. And I still can't say this without getting goosebumps. But he said, I heard in a loud announcement, you have 7 minutes to get in your car and to leave the area, or you will perish. You have 6 minutes to leave the area, or you will perish. If you stay, you will perish. And I stopped, I get emotional. I stop and I think about those parents that were in those cars waiting for their children to get out of school. I don't know about you, but as a mom, what would you do? I mean, if I could only talk to those parents, I can't imagine. And I didn't hear of any deaths. I know there was a lot of injuries severe that we didn't hear about. And they also found this, again, is that house. They're trying to find the Barbies and the Matchbox cars, and behind that's the school. But behind that area there was a creek, and there was a mom and her little ones found deceased in that creek. And I can only imagine it was probably one of those parents that was waiting for their children to get out and thought, I'm gonna get my kids. So it's heartbreaking. So when this is a reality of these disasters. You never know when they're gonna hit. And all I know is, God forbid anything happened to any of us around here, I would want someone to help us. So I believe that we're to help others as well. And so that's really why Ralph and I and Community Hope Center stepped up to help people. Is we just took what we had, and what we knew, and resources that the community helped us with, and we went and we helped. It was amazing. We crossed paths with teams from all over the nation. Everybody was so kind. The camaraderie was incredible. So working together, rubbing elbows together, and really just helping people where they needed it was really a beautiful thing. I got my tent shell on the street. They were walking around. There was just people from everywhere. And you know, I'm a different kind of girl. I know I wore my flip-flops. I know that was really silly, but I did. I wore my flip-flops because there they are. I was there to organize and strategize and connect people and take pictures and be able to bring this back. But all in all, what it came down to, I was having to get into some of the muck and do stuff. So I wish I had a picture of it. There was a ministry called Boots on the Streets, and they pulled up and they said, anybody need boots? They're like, Angela needs boots. So I actually got boots, and they were cute ones too. But it was just amazing, the resources that come from everywhere. People just come together. Again, you take what you have, you go with what you have, and you do what you can. You don't have to be professional. You have to use wisdom, and it does help to go with somebody or a team organization that knows what they're doing. It helps the process go very smooth. But again, these folks still need our help. They still need our prayers. I can't say that Community Hope Center necessarily is doing anything at the present time. We have so many needs as well. It never ends. Our clientele grows all the time. But again, we did what we could, and our community was fantastic. But again, could you just imagine? When you see it, you never get used to that. We were actually able to help with Joplin as well. It was very eerie how similar the circumstances were from Joplin as well as Oklahoma. I think the Roadies are coming up here in a moment. They were the most precious couple. This was their house, they're on the left. And they're in their 80s. They made it, honestly, so about 20 seconds time into their shelter. They were one of the few that had shelters, and it's gonna show it here in a moment. But that's what saved their life, is getting down into that safe place. But shelters really are few and far between, and they're very expensive. I was told the soil is unique, so shelters are expensive to put in. I don't know those details, but that's what I was told. And we didn't see very many, so it has to be true. She found the picture of the little boy right there. You'll see their son in a moment. But she found a couple things that she was able to share that was, you saw earlier, that was a hug. His family said this must be the hug patrol. So whether it was a hug or needed items or prayer, they were so grateful to see us. This was their son, and those were the only items he was able to find, with some records, his baby shoes, and a few other trinkets that, but you can see the houses behind them, that was across the street. They weren't even barely even touched. Just amazing. We stopped and prayed with them. And to the left in the background, you see the white bus. There was military back there. This was that Sunday we were waiting for President Obama to arrive. So a lot of people were kind of standing around waiting to see the excitement. We never actually saw him on the ground, but like I said, we saw Air Force One, the military. But anyway, again, we were just thankful to be able to do something for Oklahoma, and I just ask that you continue to pray for them. The Salvation Army in those areas, and it's not just Moore got a lot of help. Not that they don't need more help, but the need hit that area hard. But the areas of Shawnee and Pecan Valley, Little Axe and so forth, more rural areas, they're still living in tents. We talked to a lot of people, and you can only imagine their stories of how they survived. I don't know if they even knew how they survived. We actually talked to a couple that was featured on the news that were in the car. They were thrown, I forgot how many, a long ways, how many feet. They were banged up pretty good. But amazing, only 24 people on that tornado. It hit again later. But only 24 people perished. And when you see this devastation, And you know, it's sad, no matter how many people perish, this was the memorial at the school. But when you see that, you think, there's no doubt God's hand was upon them. There's no way they could survive otherwise. Because it took metal, thick metal, and twisted it, just incredible. But this was the memorial that they put up for the children that perished. That was the school. Anyway, so again, if you helped in any way, if you prayed, and if you supported that effort, we really appreciate it. But it really was just something, I'm not saying we're in the disaster relief, but it's something that's definitely on my heart, and we wanted to help where we could.